Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tomes and Tales by Mischief of Mice. We're a group of friends, and we all just kind of really enjoy graphic novels and hanging out together. We live all across the globe, but this is one way that we can all keep in touch and still enjoy the things that we like to do most. One of which is read graphic novels. This month, we have chosen Lazarus, as you see here, and we're going to introduce you to the people in our group. First, I will introduce myself. I'm Valen from Mischief of Mice, as some of you may have known from the YouTube channel, and I'm going to pop my name tag on there, and then we're going to keep going down the list. Next is the Zone. Here.
Hey, I'm the Zone, another Mischief of Mice member. I guess calling in from Michigan.
Yeah. And just so you know, we're all over the place, so don't freak out if you guys end up hearing some weird issues with audio or visual. We're all going to just wing it as we go. Next up is Kashka.
Hi. yeah, I'm Valen's wife, Kashka. We live in Scotland. Yeah, this should be fun. Next.
And then we have Callisto.
Hi, I'm Callisto. I'm also in Michigan. In fact, in the basement with the Zone.
And then we've got Helen.
Hi, I'm Helen. I am in Illinois, and I am the sister of Valen and Kashka.
And then we have Hannah. Excuse me, Lilac.
You are so fired.
Fired.
Hi, my name's Lilac or Hannah, and I'm actually broadcasting from Kansas, but will normally be broadcasting from California. And I am friends with everyone. Not wife of anyone, just friends with everyone. All right, so this month we're doing Lazarus. It was technically my pick, and I was super excited about it. I heard about it from Amy Dowland's comic book little YouTube videos that she does for Geek and Sundry. I think she had it on a holiday gift list, and picked it up and thought it was totally awesome, so suggested it for this graphic novel club. It's right back there, and also Valen put up a little thing for it. So, to give a little backstory of what exactly it is we read the trade paperback, which includes 4 chapters, which I believe each chapter is an issue, so 4 issues, and then it had a prelude short story, which I think was released online as kind of a to get media going for releasing the first issue. So those are the things we read. Is that correct, everybody? I think we all read the same thing.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's kind of the story arc that we are covering. So the basic summary is the world no longer has countries as they are now. Some of the names for things like LA, Los Angeles, Sedona, Sonoran Desert, things like that are still there, but the world is divided up into regions that are controlled by families. The families are the governing, ruling class, so to speak. And a family is very small. The family that's focused on in this particular novel is the Carlisle family, which has 6 members that we know of. There may be a mother in there, but she didn't really show up. A father, and then his 5 children or grown siblings. One in particular, which is the Lazarus of the family, is a person that's been genetically engineered to be a warrior with like regenerative powers. So they actually refer to her as the tip of the family patriarch's sword. She goes out and does his like particular bidding and helps with any sort of family issues. So she has that regenerative effect. It's very hard to kill her, but there's a lot of kind of sciencey stuff going on with her. But she is the youngest of the 5 siblings, and then her other two sisters and two brothers are also part of this governing family. Anyways, their region is, I think, Oregon and California, maybe a little further up to Washington, and it's kind of that western coast, going all the way down to LA. And we're basically following in these 4 chapters. We follow kind of what she is, what being a Lazarus is. So the very first scene is a fight scene, and so you kind of see that what she's able to do because of the training and the engineering that she's had been done to her. But then later you go into more of the politics and how the world is set up. So that's kind of a backstory without giving up too much away right at the start. So anyways, that's the thing. And I guess I'll start with the first thing I kind of noticed.
Okay.
In it, the Lazarus, it seems like there's one Lazarus for each family. Maybe there's more, and that's something that happens later on. But the Lazarus people that are part of the family, the two that meet, her and another family's Lazarus that meet, they kind of had a relationship that was different than just like soldiers from opposing armies. It was a little more warm and kind of from a like background sort of thing. They knew they were on separate sides, but you know, it was really kind of interesting. I like that.
Yeah, I got like a romantic vibe.
Yeah, yeah. There was a little sharing of it was papaya that they were sort of sharing. Anyways,
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
I did enjoy that. It kind of lightened it up a little bit. It brought it back down from the total action and just, you know, sometimes getting a little bogged down with some of the history and backdrop, but then it just kind of, oh look, these two are kind of, you know, something's clicking with these two, and yet we're not going to explain what yet. It's more of a foreshadowing or something for a future volume, I guess. I don't know. I did enjoy that, though. It kind of brought a smile to my face.
It was like a human aspect of them, you know, made the characters much more human, I think. I can... Oh, go ahead.
One of the questions I wrote was it surprising that the non-human Lazaruses were more humane than the humans?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, they kind of exhibited more compassion and, you know, than any of their human counterparts. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, definitely. And they were, even in the way that they were controlling her was very, and the way that they're like medicating her to deal with the guilt that she's feeling about her, you know, job is like
Her
a little bit
maintenance.
more psychopathic than she is, you know. More detached from reality. Or, well, I don't know, I mean. Well, this actually kind of goes with Valen's question. Don't you think? It's about, like, where the world's at. You want to do your question?
Sure. Essentially, the idea behind this, before I ask it, is just we each kind of came up with some kind of question, just so that we would have something to go on, something that we were wondering about the book or that we wanted to bring out about it. And in this one, I guess the setting mostly caught up a lot with me on this. I mean, it seemed very strange being kind of post-apocalyptic, but yet at the same time very advanced. So, I mean, do you think this is the same Earth we know now in the distant future? Or a parallel universe? Or what? I mean, I'm not really sure. And then, how do you think the populations got to the point of being in a family serf waste is what they're called in there. The different classifications, family being kind of the highest, and then serfs being those that they employed, and then the waste being the general populace, I guess.
So, go ahead.
I have a joke comment, so I'll just I think this is the reality that occurs if Donald Trump is elected president.
And the politics are here.
Sorry. Alright. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, they kind of hinted at. I mean, it could be a parallel universe. Always could be a parallel universe. But part of the reason why I think it's, based in reality and is more of like a future, like, is obviously there's like the city names, the things like that they want to keep you attached to as like something that is in our history, or I don't know how to say it, our geography basically, or of North America. So in that way, I think they're just trying to actually say there's like this is something that could potentially happen in the future, or something to that degree. And part of the reason why I think that as well is because they talk about like these gosh, words are hard. The agriculture, like being an issue, like with certain families and other things, and I'm guessing that a lot of like stuff like that Mad Max talks about, like water wars or other resource wars and things like that, like that.
Yeah.
That's sort of like what this is what happened. They turned to families now. Entire governments or things were just they weren't good enough anymore because they couldn't keep it all together. So like we came into more of a I don't know, like not nomad, but sort of like clan-like society where we have all these little clans around and based on families.
So maybe those families arose because they had specific skills that were valued in this new world. That the Carlisles seem to be really good at the agricultural genetic engineering of the seeds. So maybe that brought them to power. And that's how each of the families had some specific niche that was particular and very important for this new world, and that's how they're able to do what they're doing.
So what about like the serfs? I mean, I realize that a lot of the family will employ them. At least that's the impression I got from the male Lazarus that was in there when he ended the employment of somebody in front of the rest of the troops, stating such. But I mean, do you think any of the families are created? I mean, I noticed there was a big difference in the family size and serf and waste size for the properties when you go from one family to the next. Like millions to thousands. It's quite a big gap, but yet they seem to be respecting each other as if they were equals, in a way. I mean,
It sounded like medieval times. Like this is like fiefdoms. Like the families are like the royalty, and you have like their vassals and stuff as the serfs. And well, instead of calling them peasants, they called them waste, which is pretty harsh.
yeah. So
But
I
guess that really just kind of threw away with any sort of like like predispositions. They're like, nope, we really don't care about you, and here's why. Here's your name, thanks.
Because you are disposable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at first I thought they were talking about other waste, like like how to get rid of their waste. But
Yeah.
no, no, they were people.
Yeah.
That's good that they were treating them like waste, anyways.
I thought they were talking about waste as well. Actual waste at the beginning, but then after a few pages in, I was like, oh, they're just talking about commoners.
Mm-hmm.
I did think it was interesting that they kept the they did the testing. There's one point where they talk about the daughter of the man that's executed, and how they tested her, and she scored high for technical aptitude, and they lifted her. And I thought that was really interesting because Stanford still exists in this really strange land of waste and serfdom and all that. Stanford is still around and kicking. And then she was trained specifically for this family. So it's like they keep an eye on the waste, even though they are disposable. And if there's something in there that they deem worthy, then they educate it and use it as a resource.
They harvest it.
They do.
Oh.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I actually kind of missed that, and that totally makes sense now. So that fills in a big gap for me. Um, all right, so I'm just going to go next down the list, and we're going to continue in the same order that we did the introductions. And I'm going to go with the zone. Do you have a question in mind?
You know, I did not come up with a particular question for this one. Yeah, I admit I'm totally gonna pick from the generic list. And yeah, but I think I would definitely, that's a good question. So did you guys find the ending satisfying? Like, were you intrigued, upset, happy?
I really liked it. I'm really thankful that my wonderful fiance owns volume 2 and 3. So after we're done with this, I can go on and just read the rest.
Oh, pardon me while I visit Amazon. I didn't realize there's more.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Like I was, it didn't feel like an ending as such. Like it was like almost like more of a pause than an ending. So I wasn't satisfied
Right.
with it, but in a good way. Like I wasn't satisfied, so I want to read more. So it was, so in a way, I guess I was satisfied with it because if I want to read more, then that's like a good thing, right? So I don't know.
It's kind of like a cliffhanger sort of
Yeah.
ending, but it felt like they were kind of building to that anyway. You're kind of thinking in the back of your mind, she looks different. She's just totally different from the rest. So that aspect kind of, it felt like kind of niggling at you, but at the end they kind of, that's the cliffhanger they went with for this volume.
Well, it seems like I mean they ended up creating her to be more of a kind of a hero in the book. I mean, as the father was saying, all these kids and only one of them turned out right. And I think that kind of I don't know plays well to following her in the series because it's often easier to relate to a hero type character than it is to a villain, depending upon the situation. But I think that lends itself to it, and I find because the way that it ended, at least volume one, on a cliffhanger, of course, but with the unresolved conflict that had been building throughout the entire volume, it lent itself to root for her in my mind, so that I hope she ends up taking care of that issue, as it may be, but also that she finds the underlying truths involved in it, and I think that's like the longer term story moving along with that, so that it continues on with more than just like volume two, where issue resolved and then end of series or something. There's always got to be a little bit more twist to the knife to keep the interest going.
There was quite a bit of foreshadowing on her not supposed to find out that she's different or that he just pretending that or her dad's pretending to love her. And to me that just set up the rest. Well, I haven't read the other volumes, but it seems to set up the rest of the series
Yeah.
for her to investigate and find this out and find out what she is. And
Yeah.
we'll see.
And I'm you bringing up the whole the father love thing. I don't think he does. I think he wants her to be like one of his children and so on, and he kind of treats her like that. But I think he acknowledges that she is an object, and that's pretty much how he treats it. At least from my view. I mean, I think it was a fine line, but I think in the end he wants her to be his daughter, but at the same time, I think he just treats her like she's property because she kind of is in his eyes. Anyway.
I feel like he's just manipulating her because he clearly, to me at least, he clearly sees her as property. He's not as concerned with her as he is with the other children. But she is clearly seeking his approval by constantly doing what she's ordered. And like there was the one frame where he said that he was proud of her, and she smiled. So like she is clearly seeking love, clearly seeking approval, and he is portraying giving that to her, but I don't think he actually cares about her. She's still just an object, still just a tool for him to use in a war against the other families if it comes to that kind of thing, or against the waste.
Yeah, they even bring up the fact that one does not love a pet like they love a child.
Yeah.
So yeah, clearly we know where she stands.
I thought it was interesting though that she completely followed the paladin archetype. She's like this lawful good. The law of the land is her family, but she hasn't done anything that's necessarily unsavory. Like there's no real reason for you to root against her right now. You know what I mean? So she feels like a paladin to me right now, which is a little sugary sweet sometimes when thinking about paladins. So I'm looking forward to reading more and finding out if there are some weaknesses of hers that aren't, she has too much compassion. Just is she more human? Does she make mistakes? Is she going to make a mistake later on in her journey to find out who she is? That kind of thing.
I have to say that I have to say that if her brother is any example of the rest of the population, then she doesn't really have to be
that much
in order to be the good guy.
The level's set really low.
Yes.
Oh no, I was going to say that's actually the question that I was going to ask the group is, what do you think Forever's biggest weakness is right now? I mean, she hasn't displayed like a lot of like particular characteristics except for the ones that Lilac just mentioned, where she's kind of abiding by like her family's expectations and getting approval from her father. So what do you guys think her biggest weakness is at the moment?
I'll start.
I want to go with line. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start. I'm going to say that it's the fact that she is humane, and actually they're forcing her to take drugs, it appears, to keep this at bay. But at the same time, the father seems to want a portion of that to come through. I mean, currently, it seems like he wants that compassion, and her forethought and everything, her gut feeling seems to work well with her. But the rest of the children or family, I guess, seems to manipulate her to their ends. And I don't know if it's unbeknownst to the father or not. I mean, all the medication she's on, sure, but I don't know if that's all, knowledge to the father, so he knows that they're trying to suppress her. For the example of, you have to keep giving her love. Give her love, because otherwise she's going to have some kind of break. What's this break? I don't know.
Maybe there's precedent for that break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a good point.
Like, her biggest weakness in my thing is that she has blind faith, and this is a huge trope in the book, in my opinion. Like basically, it's the character that starts off like I believe in the system, I'm doing right, I'm the good person, and like I'm going to become disenfranchised later for some reason or another, and then get really pissed off and do something.
Right.
I have to say that I think her biggest weakness right now is her naivety. Like, she seems to have this, like, trust of her family that doesn't yet, or at the end of the book, perhaps that cliffhanger, is about to break it. But right now, or through the majority of the book, she has this trust of her family that just seems to know no bounds. Like, they tell her something and she takes it at face value. I think the only awkward scene was when she meets with her brother, and her brother is like trying to give her that kind of like support and love in a very fake way, and she picks up on that. So that was to her credit. But
Super creepy.
what are you doing? Get off me, kind of thing.
Sister.
Pretty much.
We're getting a warm, snuggly hug from Darth Vader. Yeah.
I don't know if it's so much about trust as the fact that they state in the book that she has to obey all of them. I think there's a hierarchy, meaning she has to obey Dad first, but they stated that, which also then goes into my question. Because the scene in which the other Lazarus had the damage on the side of his face, and the side of his face, his jaw was obviously metal, makes me wonder if they're actually androids or if they are genetically engineered people who then get parts replaced by, metallic replacement parts. And if they are androids, it makes sense that she's programmed to obey them at all costs, and then it goes into, well, the robots are now more, caring than the humans.
I think I remember in the book them saying that they're genetically programmed to respond. So I think that Forever which is the main character name. I don't know if I stated that or someone else did, but I think that she is mostly, if not almost all, fleshy.
Okay.
And the other, I'm speculating that the other Lazarus,
Less cyborg.
yeah, the other Lazarus, I'm guessing was not as well spent on, and therefore has
You
probably.
think he was like bargain basement Lazarus kind of thing?
Maybe. I mean, he was in a.
The family that he was Lazarus for was struggling.
Right.
So that may have been part of it. Also, he did mention that he had been put together a few times.
Yep.
Had last seen each other, so maybe he's just been more damaged than Forever has.
They also seem to insinuate that he is older than her because he says the last time he saw her, she was like 14 or something like that.
Right.
So maybe it's the fact that he is older than her, he's taken more damage. They've had to repair him in ways that maybe are not the most technologically savvy for the family since they're struggling. So he ends up with a robotic arm and jaw.
Well, I was curious. There was a couple of panels there where you could see the metallic, but he was basically had his face turned away from her for most of it, like he was trying to hide that fact. So it makes me curious about how their relationship will go in the future, and that maybe he's embarrassed by what he's become.
That's a good question. Speaking of which, do you have any questions?
Yeah, that was my question.
Oh, that was your question. Okay. Beg pardon. So I
honestly didn't even think of that, him looking away with the metal.
I'm trying to find his name.
Joaquin.
Yeah, Joaquin.
Joaquin.
Thank you.
I want to say that I think that he actually feels much more comfortable around her, regardless of that. I know that he seemed to be looking away a bit, but I don't think he was turning away as much as because a good, I don't know, 1/4 of his body was kind of missing at that point, and it didn't seem to faze him in the way that I viewed it when I looked at it. Perhaps I kind of overlooked that. I kind of speed up as I go through graphic novels, so I tend to overlook little things. But hold on.
Or it's a different interpretation.
He was ready to up and at him for some butt kicking after that, so I think there was He got back up and going pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think that they're very comfortable with each other, knowing
Yeah,
that.
look.
Yeah, of course. Knowing that the let me try and actually get the thought out. Oh my gosh, that they are different from the rest of the population, even if one of them is like almost all machine, and the other one is highly regenerative flesh. I think that they also both realize that they're very similar in their mental capacities and their physical abilities, and therefore have a much different relationship than the rest of the people.
But yeah, I definitely think their relationship is different because they're probably the only people that actually treat each other like a human, you know. The, her father and her siblings were trying to show her love, and she was trying to get their approval in some level. Um, but with Joaquin, he was very like kind of open and more like what I would think of as herself, you know. And I think he was the same way with her. And that's why I think perhaps he was more embarrassed. Like with his family, it's he's like the object, and they kind of treat him like that. But with Forever, he's a bit more like human. So maybe that was why he was embarrassed.
Also, in his family, he wasn't a son of the main person. The main person was like his uncle.
Yeah.
Like they had a little different structure also in his family than hers. So maybe the Carlyles, because she was younger, and maybe there wasn't a precedent with them, maybe they were a newer family coming into power.
It's also possible that Dad might not have been present. I mean, in general, like he might be dead, because they sounds like they've had some pretty shady past, and who knows? Maybe they were casualties at the head of the family.
Yeah, that's true.
So Helen.
Yes.
And did you have any questions from the book?
It's not really from the book, it's just an opinion. Did anybody else struggle with her name?
Yes.
It took me a really long time to get past it. And the fact that I think her nickname is Eve.
Yeah.
Yes.
And going back and forth, and especially because graphic novels are written in all capitals. So you don't have the distinction of a name being capitalized versus the word forever being capitalized. And there were a couple places where I had to reread and be like, okay, they're actually talking about the person here, not the concept of forever.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the first time they call about her name. Like, they call her name, like, just forever. Like, I'm like, huh?
Yeah. I honestly, it pulled me out of the story, and that's something which I think is unfortunate. But I really enjoyed the novel. I thought it was fantastic, but her name was just not my favorite thing.
A little off-putting.
That was
I don't know if anybody else found that similar or not.
I thought it was difficult at first. Sorry.
They did not like it.
Third-party opinions not welcome.
Distinguishing her from the rest of her siblings. All of her siblings have Johanna, James isn't one. Jonah. They have like common names, but Forever, like that's completely different from the other. Just from her siblings, so it separates her from them in another way on top of what's going on.
Actually, despite the fact that it was very frustrating at times, it still, now especially that we're talking about it, seems really fitting. Like, because the type of name that you would give a pet doesn't necessarily like go along the same lines as what you would give a human. Yeah. Sometimes they're human names, other times, well, they're like, named after characters or ideas or other things like that. Like I named, one of our dogs after a character from Final Fantasy. So, yeah. Uh, if you named a kid that, you'd be kind of a jerk.
Not necessarily.
No judgment here, though.
It makes me wonder though, Helen, with that question, if I need to go back and look because the fact that they called her Eve a few times, I can't remember who called her Eve, and if it was always the same person or two people, and if it was with affection or not, because then perhaps that might have had a bit more meaning, like a humane address to her than.
Was it James?
It was James at one point, and I think it was her father at another.
Oh,
Yes, it was definitely her father. I remember that one in particular because it confused me. I'm like, Eve, I thought her name was Forever.
Yeah, I had the same thing.
Yeah. I wonder if it had a different connotation, though. The way it was addressed. If it was just because they were trying to give her a more appropriate, like I don't know, a comforting response. Where they're trying to be all lovey-dovey thing, where they're like, you have to give her more love, as noted in the beginning, or if it was just something that they ended up doing. Like sometimes you'll change that pet's name to something a little bit more silly, like.
Quick, she needs 100 cc's of love stat.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bad example, but I mean, we've got a pug named Zoe, and we will sometimes call her the Destructor because, but I mean, you sometimes give your pets little nicknames. So I don't know, maybe that was something that ended up sticking, or maybe
Well, they
it was.
were the ones that they seemed to be the most on board and most understanding of what was required of them with regards to her, whereas her siblings kind of saw her just as this worker of their family, whereas they saw her purpose and what they needed to do to make her reach that purpose,
Right.
or to be best at that. So maybe it just showed how more on board they were.
So, Lilac, what kind of questions did you have about this? What big grin on your face there.
We've actually talked a lot about kind of what I noticed about it. It helped to have those landmarks that are present now to sort of give you a setting. So I kind of appreciated that. Also, I found it interesting her little jab at Jonah when they're going down to, her and Jonah are traveling down to LA to see her sister Johanna, where Johanna and Jonah live. While they're driving through LA, you can tell that something disastrous has happened, whatever that was. And she's commenting on how it should have been better maintained and better built up for the people, which would be the waste. So it's like she's even thinking of the waste, because in previous things, the way she interacted with the waste was kind of, just nothing. But in that comment to her brother, the waste is important, and there are things to maintain, and he was not doing that. So for her to criticize him like that, even though he sees her as like this underling, kind of interesting to me.
Sort of like when Callisto would, see my house when we were dating. Like, why don't you take better care of yourself?
Ouch.
Good that you married me.
Well, I have to say that's a good point. I mean, that might actually set Eve / forever / whatever.
Wow.
No, it might. I'm just gonna call her Eve. That might set Eve up for something in the future, perhaps. Maybe in this almost post-apocalyptic future, that she ends up maybe rising up and turning against them and leading the waste, even in the future. I mean, obviously.
That would be amazing.
it being her brother, expectations are not exactly high for any kind of anything. He seemed to be a real, excuse the term, douche from the get-go. Uh, and I have nothing to compare it with, really. I mean, it's just little bits and pieces from the rest of the other family members. They all seem just as bitter as each other, but I don't know if they all take care of their waste or serfs in any better way.
Hmm.
Though I doubt that it's very much better than the rest.
Maybe she does end up being like a Furiosa of the story.
That would be awesome. I would
I'm
support
like
that.
really excited now.
Seriously. Write faster, people! Write faster! Does anybody know if the series is... I mean, is it complete, or is it still ongoing, or...
I
Same?
think
I think I saw Volume 4 actually when I was looking up on Amazon to go look at the others to pick up. I checked it out for Volume 4. It looks like January in 2016. So, yep, looks like it's still going.
Cool.
Very
So
cool.
then, that brings me to a question. Will you guys be continuing the series?
Mm.
yes.
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 Cool.
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Good
definitely
pick.
really cool. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
good. Speaking of picks, I think that.
well, hang on.
Oh, wait, go ahead.
One more, like, kind of generic graphic novel question, but what did you guys think of the art?
I really liked it.
The
What
art.
What did you like about it?
I liked the different color palettes that they used for different situations. Like when they're doing sciencey stuff, it's all blues and greens.
For science.
And reds when all the alarms are going off.
Yeah, and then it's like browns and tans when there's family stuff, and then there's the reds when there's violence, and it seemed like the almost romantic scenes between Forever and the other Lazarus, whose name I'm not remembering right now. They were some of the most colorful scenes, it seemed like. And I could be wrong in that, but I thought that was really interesting, seeing the color palettes go back and forth.
Yeah, and she was never like comfortable until she was around that other Lazarus. Because I remember specifically, she came out of the shower when she was in her family's compound, and you would think you'd be comfortable. You're nice and clean. You're in your towel. She's in her towel. But then you've got her sister with one of those science gadget things, and then you've got the sciencey color, kind of impeding in on that, and it's still uncomfortable. Like, when is she ever comfortable? So, yeah, that is an interesting. The more color with possibly her comfort. The papaya being orange and green, like a mix.
I have to say this is one of the few graphic novels that I've read where the colorist was actually better than the illustrator, slightly. And because of that, I mean, everything that you were saying, where the different colors represent the mood so well. Not that I dislike the illustration or the inker any less. They did a wonderful job. And they had very strong illustrations. I like how everything was very defined. Characters were relatively easy to recognize, which sometimes happens in graphic novels. They can get a bit blurred, but I didn't really have much difficulty. Like that woman there is blonde, and yep, in this frame she's blonde again. Not a problem with that kind of stuff. But even the shapes of the faces and so on were still very well maintained. The art is usually a big thing for me on the graphic novels, and the storyline tends to be a second. In this one, I think everything was really well balanced. It was really well balanced.
I agree.
I think it had a really strong opening page. I really
Oh
loved
my
it.
gosh.
The colors in it are really strong, and yeah, I really loved that. Like, that was page one, basically. I was like, I'm hooked.
I also have to add one quick thing that I liked is that she was super muscular.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they weren't afraid to show it. She was ripped.
But yeah, they didn't like do the scantily clad thing too much, you know.
No.
Oh, she was pretty decently, portrayed as far as being like, sometimes it gets into this stupid zone where, it's like, as far as clothing for feminine heroes goes. But this was actually, I appreciated the level of clothing that they hid. For me.
And it was
I thought,
to her role.
The
'Cause
armored sports
they didn't want her to be sexy to people. They wanted her to be intimidating. So like that leather jacket, and
Yeah.
very utilitarian. Yeah, I like that.
and the fact that she's wearing a sports bra underneath everything, like
Yeah.
in the beginning when she's getting that physical,
Mhm.
like that scene.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody actually thought through the practicality of her clothing.
Like,
Yeah.
which is refreshing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times that's not the case. And like she's clearly dressing for the job that she's doing, which is good. Small details make the difference to me, I think.
I have to say that when I turned the page and I saw that the bath towel scene was coming up, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. The traditional, we've got to show some skin type thing. They didn't show it. It was her in a bath towel showing how uncomfortable she was the entire time.
Yeah.
Yes, Beth. Yes, Beth. Yes, Beth.
Because her sister was undressing her. That's nice.
You inspecting me. Oh.
Oh, and it's almost like she was in a battle-ready stance. Like her arms are loose at her sides. She's not trying to hide herself. She looks like she's assessing the situation and kind of keeping her options open in case something happens that's not okay.
Right.
Which I thought was interesting.
I think she was a very strong character and a good one to choose for the series to follow.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that's going to kind of wrap it up for the questions. And here we're going to present the next month. We plan on this being a monthly thing, provided we can all, or at least the majority of us, get together for this. And that is, we're going to be doing Lumberjanes, as chosen by me. It's something that's been on my list that I've been kind of watching for a long time. And little did I know that Kashka ended up ordering it, and I didn't even know, and suddenly it arrived. Yeah, so I've been interested in it for quite a while. I believe the premise is they're in a cabin telling ghost stories, and they kind of come true or something. I have no idea.
They're at camp. Girls at camp fighting monsters.
Even better.
I've been looking forward to this one too.
I've always enjoyed the whole Buffy idea. So
yeah.
The artwork, surprisingly, I actually really liked it. Usually I like really beautiful artwork. In this one, it just seemed a lot of fun, sort of like Adventure Time-ish. And just the idea of like flipping through a few example pages on it, it passed the flip test. And I figure it's a good try, so we'll see. That being said, anything else anybody wanted to say before we go? All right. Well then, we're glad that anybody that's watching is still watching at this point. It's live now, and it's going to be saved and posted up very shortly after this is done. And feel free to put a bunch of comments of what you think, questions you had. Feel free to direct them out, and we'll try and get back to you as best we can. So glad anybody out there is watching, and hope you guys enjoyed.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.